You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
I am a HR professional, been in the space for over 20 years now. One of our values at the business is customer obsession, just making sure that we design our products or our process in a way that we are meeting our customer needs. So you're living it real time, right? Like it's constant every day, every delivery. You know that delivery is going towards getting a vaccine to a baby that may never have seen vaccines before. We have built something so phenomenal. It would enable anybody, anywhere to have access. And I think that's what the lesson is, right?
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to another episode of the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we explore the ideas, institutions, and leadership shaping Africa's economic future. When we talk about critical infrastructure in Africa, we often focus on roads, power, or ports. But there is another form of infrastructure that is quietly contributing to health systems across the continent, which is autonomous logistics. Zipline has been operating in Africa since 2016 and now runs what is described as the largest autonomous network on Earth. It is fully integrated into public health systems in Ghana, Rwanda, Nigeria, Kenya, and Côte d'Ivoire. But behind every drone flight, every life-saving delivery, and every logistics hub, there are people. And that is what today's episode is about. Joining me is Juliet Oshagbemi, Chief People and Culture Officer for Africa at Zipline. Juliet leads HR business partnering, people operations, and procurement across 5 African countries. Juliet, welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast. How are you?
I am well. Thank you very much, Tessa. Absolute pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. As always, I like to start from the beginning. So give us a brief introduction into who Juliet Oshagbemi is.
Absolutely. So I am a HR professional, been in the space for over 20 years now. I have worked across public sector, private sector, and kind of segued into tech because I realized that is where the future lies. And that is what is going to transform our amazing continent, Africa. I also am passionate about building the next generation of leaders. I am passionate about conflict resolution and peacekeeping. I'm also recently became a basketball mom, so completely obsessed with basketball. I use it in everywhere I can to support teams in growth and just trying to problem solve, because with basketball, you just have to work as a team. If not, you're not going to get that ball in the hoop. I am married to an airline pilot, so aviation is something that is really close to my heart. So we kind of compete and say we're both in the aviation space. I also am very particular about young children, young adults. How can we prepare them for the future of work? So constantly using my experience to guide the youth to make the right career choices. So that's kind of a bit about me, Tessa.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Juliet. So let's start, I guess, with the foundation. I know Zipline has been operating in Africa since 2016 and runs one of the largest autonomous networks on Earth. If we approach that from a people and culture perspective, what does it take to build a team that's capable of sustaining that level of infrastructure and sophistication?
Amazing question. I mean, I think it might make sense for me to just spend maybe a minute talking about what we're actually doing today, because I think it will be really powerful for the listeners. As you've mentioned, Zipline is probably the only company in the world that delivers packages using a drone. It is an American AI robotics company, and we design and build our drones. And we partner with African governments to deliver on their visions to transform healthcare and grow economies. So I thought it might make sense to say a bit of that so that you have an idea of what the company is all about. We're more than just like the replacement of trucks, if that makes sense. Like it's bigger than that. It's a whole solution and super, super impactful. To your question around how do we build teams, it's such an amazing piece of technology that we constantly are thinking about hiring the best talent because we move really fast and we need to make sure we have people that can make decisions really fast. What we have done is look for certain characteristics in people. So, for example, we would look for people that have an entrepreneurial mindset, people that are great at problem solving, people that are great at building teams, people that are great team players. Those are some of the things that we've looked at. And as you can imagine, because we do operate across multiple countries, we do have to include the cultural context when looking at hiring people across all these geographies. So it takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of research to make sure that you are hiring people that want to be at the company. But most importantly, we make sure that we find people that are very mission orientated and are so passionate about the impact of this technology on the continent that they will do anything within their power to make sure that this works and works well.
You touched on some of the areas or sectors that Zipline operates in terms of healthcare. So when you're involved in delivering critical commodities or items such as blood, vaccines, medicines, on demand, failure is not really an option. So how do you build a culture where safety, precision, and almost urgency can coexist?
So as I was saying earlier, when we're hiring as well, you're looking for people that understand the importance of safety and compliance. And one of our values at the business is customer obsession, just making sure that we design our product or our process in a way that we are meeting our customer needs. We are very particular about how we operate. Our SOPs are very clear. We train our people in a way that there's almost no room for error because it's very clear and detailed what you need to do, what each step is. We also work very closely with regulatory bodies in all these countries to make sure that we are compliant. I mean, as you can imagine, safety is something that everybody would focus on by virtue of using drones. So we work with the relevant regulatory bodies in each of these countries as partners to make sure that we're doing everything possible to be safe and to be compliant.
As drones are a huge part of, the business, the offering, you're not just a technology company, you're also a company that is fully embedded within national infrastructure. So how do you manage to integrate the strategy, or how does the strategy shift when you're not just a tech company, but also a company that is integrated into, say, a national infrastructure?
So we work closely with governments. We understand what their healthcare priorities are. We work with the relevant stakeholders within those either organizations to understand what are we trying to achieve here. And partnering with them, we're able to design a process that fully integrates into the country's healthcare system. We also show them that, we're going to also bring value for money, right? We show them what the value proposition is really clear. For example, when you look at hiring, we hire 100% local talent into these jobs. So these people are also members of the community. So they also know what the problems are, right? And that gives us a head start to enable us to integrate fully as well, both at local level, at national level. And that kind of enables us to integrate into any healthcare system in any of the countries that we work with.
As you mentioned, you work with governments and you are working across 5 African countries, markets. What would you say are some of the biggest cultural or regulatory differences within the different countries that you operate in?
I would say probably maybe from a civil aviation standpoint, all airports, all countries operate differently. So I would say that we do have the right experts that go in early as we enter the market to ensure that we're able to understand what the peculiarities are. I think it would be hard for me to answer you, Tessa, on a specific,
yes,
because that might mean me going into territory that could be a bit complex. So I think I'd answer it for you holistically by saying that, we work closely with the different regulatory agencies in these countries to ensure that we are able to operate safely and to make sure that we are compliant with local laws.
if we shift from the cultural aspects within those specific markets and look at how do you actually create one coherent culture within the company but across borders?
So one of the big things for us is our values. And those values are kind of like the solid foundation that cuts across the whole company. We constantly remind people of what those values are. And we constantly tell people to call out when those values are not being seen. And we do refresher programs on on values and making sure that it's constantly in the back of people's minds. Hiring is really important for us. So when we are hiring as well, like I said earlier, we do look out for certain characteristics because we have seen that people that have those kind of characteristics, join the workforce and they want to do the best work of their lives. Yeah. So we also, hiring is very critical for us. And we empower people to make decisions, right? So that they understand that you're like a mini entrepreneur within the business, and you make a decision, and that decision, you own it. And then you own the outcome. And then we come together to review if that decision made sense. So that's how we've been able to kind of build a culture. We also have, as we work across different countries, we do exchange knowledge about the different cultures as well. That's like local culture. And we infuse that into the culture as well, so that everybody kind of understands how peculiar it is in this particular country and how to adapt when necessary. So I think that's how we've been able to build a solid culture.
Fantastic. So let's move from the culture to the operational scale, because I was amazed to hear that Zipline flies 4 to 5 times more flights per day than the largest commercial airline in Africa.
Yes.
So what would you say that means for talent pipelines and also for workforce planning?
So what that means is that we have to plan very carefully as we scale. It also means that we're constantly looking for talent. Because if I tell you that, every dinner I go to, or every networking opportunity I go to, I'm always like looking for who can I pick from here that can join the company. It's about finding people that are hungry to build something amazing. And you don't find those guys sometimes on LinkedIn. You find them in having a conversation or on a stage, sharing knowledge, or they're running a side business. And you're like, wow, how did you do that? That's really hard. That's the kind of person you're looking for, right? So we're constantly on the hunt for great talent because we do feel that Zipline is an extraordinary company and we have to hire exceptional individuals. So I'll tell you that we're constantly workforce planning, if that makes sense.
So in these high growth and also quite intense environments, people systems often lag behind technology. So how do you ensure your HR systems scale at the same speed that the engineering and the technology is scaling within the business?
Okay, we work really closely cross-functionally to understand the needs. And recently we've even been looking at, now you have like 4 to 5 generations in the workplace and they all want and need different things. So you're not just designing for scale, you're designing for integration, right? So we spend a lot of time making sure that we are staying ahead to know that we need this for the future. We need to be thinking about this. And everything we do, even at small scale, is it scalable? Can we do it at a higher scale? So working closely with our engineering colleagues, working closely with our finance colleagues, just to make sure that we're building a company, not just for now, but for the future. So it's a constant thing, constantly strategizing, constantly reviewing how we do things. How can we do it better? How can we do it faster? How can we be more efficient? That's a normal thing for us at Zipline.
So if we can look back at your experience, you previously led talent management across 13 countries at Dangote Group. What would you say are the core differences in scaling, say, people systems in a traditional industry versus a technology, robotics-driven type of company?
I would say in a traditional company like Dangote, there's more resources, right? You would probably have like a platform that would cut across all the countries, across all the functions. And when you buy those kind of pieces of technology, you buy it in a way that you can scale it by just adding on, right? Whereas in a startup or in like a Zipline context, you kind of buy what you need for now and then planning for the future. Right? Because also you don't have unlimited resources, right? You're having to make sure that whatever you have now is something that you can afford now. And then as you scale, you can build or buy something bigger to help you. So I'd say resources definitely is a big difference between resources. I mean, if you look at, the sheer volume of what we're building in a traditional company or what we're producing in comparison to a tech company that is still evolving, it is very different when you look at what is available, in terms of resources. So I would say definitely that's very different. I would say in the traditional companies, it's more hierarchical, and you have people that have worked for the company for many, many years from the beginning, and they've have the legacy knowledge. I think that is also something really powerful in traditional companies that I've seen. I mean, I was there for 12 and a half years because you can see the growth, you can see the future, right? I think in the tech space, the talent you also need changes very quickly because you're scaling something really special. So I would say that those are the two main differences that I've noticed working across both.
So if you look out from operations and look at the impact of Zipline, I know there's all kinds of achievements from data showing a 56% decrease in maternal mortality. So from a people's lens, what does it mean for teams to see that their daily work is actually translating into real life impact on the ground?
I think it's super rewarding. Something that is also quite powerful that you might not realize is that if you use like a Google Maps image of a Zipline distribution center before we started operating, and when we switch it on and we start operating, if you look at the difference, we build even communities. Because once you have a distribution center, you create direct employment, indirect employment, there's vendors that want to serve you. There's all sorts of things that you're building around. And the teams that work locally, they see that. They see that this sparse piece of land has now become a community, right? And I think that impact is almost, you see it immediately. And then they get to spend time with the customers. Some of our team members will go to the facilities and get stories from how this Zipline delivery has saved someone's life. So you're living it real time, right? Like it's constant every day, every delivery. You know that delivery is going towards saving a life, is going towards getting a vaccine to a baby that may never have seen vaccines before. So it's constant reminder every day that the work we're doing is saving a life in all the countries that we operate in.
I read that Zipline serves 45 million people globally across 5,000 drop sites. But if we look at it from an Africa perspective, how do you manage to maintain a sense of, say, accountability at that scale?
So I think it will definitely be really relying on our systems, right? Like everything that we do is part of a system. Everyone that works for us is part of a system and is working against a laid out procedure. So as we scale, we do the same thing everywhere to make sure that we're consistent and efficient. And also, if it's not working, we review it. One of our values is continuous improvement. How do we do what we do better? So that's how I would definitely say we keep ourselves accountable.
So it seems like from the conversation we've had so far, education or knowledge sharing within the company is important, but as you're dealing with public health systems in Africa, is there a level of education that's required to be shared with the communities that you serve?
100%. We do have partnerships managers that work very closely with our communities to educate them on what Zipline is trying to achieve and how we are part of their community. We also speak to our facilities that we deliver to have an understanding of how they fit into the ecosystem. Our stakeholders, we are constantly educating them on how we can add more value to their healthcare system. So I think every single customer, facility or partner that we work with, we're constantly sharing knowledge, sharing data to make sure that everybody understands the value and impact that Zipline brings to their countries and communities.
Yeah, this is true in terms of what I read, that inclusion and local leadership is key to how you operate. I read that Zipline reports being 100% locally operated with over 500 local jobs and 33% women representation. So what intentional decisions would you say sit behind those numbers?
So I think when you say that you're building a system to support governments in these countries, part of that system is capacity building. So we've been very intentional from the beginning that we're bringing this amazing technology, but we also want to grow capacity locally. And the only way to do that is to hire the best talent you can find in those countries, because then they tell the Zipline story, right? And that's how you scale, really, because when you have that local impact, then they're more hungry to make sure that this technology is available to more people in those countries, in neighboring countries. So we're very intentional from the beginning that when we're integrating into your country, we're also hiring the best people to make sure that this business lives way longer than me or you. That's really critical to us. So we're very intentional. We also want to expose people to technology that they probably would never have seen if they didn't leave the shores of Africa, right? Like, it's really important that we're bringing that to Africa so that these young engineers, young finance professionals, HR professionals, health practitioners are able to see that this is also possible in some of these countries.
And you're also recruiting at a wide range of skill levels, from engineers, drone operators, warehouse staff. So what would you say inclusive leadership looks like when you're recruiting such a diverse workforce with a wide range of skill levels?
I think, again, it goes back to those attributes I spoke to at the beginning, right? Like, one of the things we also do is we can hire you as a drone operator today, but we've seen people move from those roles into engineering or move into leadership, right? So I think one of the things we really do look out for, as well as a characteristic, is, do you have the ability to lead? Can we see the potential for you to be a great leader? And we really empower local leadership to make their own decisions, to make sure that they understand their customer so well that whatever decision they make is so their customer can be happy with the service. So I would say that empowering local leadership, getting them very close to their customers, and then solutioning together to make sure that we are giving the best service is how we've been able to build these teams, over the years.
So if we move from what's currently happening to looking at the future, I know Zipline operates across a range of areas such as healthcare, nutrition, retail and postal services. What would you say traditional African businesses, enterprises can learn from Zipline's infrastructure model or approach?
So I think what we can learn is identifying a problem and then finding a solution that could impact every single household. I think that's what everybody could learn. The problem around accessibility is what Zipline has seen. And we have now built something that is so phenomenal that it would enable anybody, anywhere, to have access. And I think that's what the lesson is, right? When you're looking at a solution, how many people can this solution touch? And if your solution can equate to flying more than Africa's largest airline, then I think it says it all.
I agree. So if we look ahead, say to the next 5-10 years, what does, well, not even looking specifically at Zipline, just looking at, say, African people strategy, what would world-class African people strategy look like for companies such as Zipline operating in Africa?
So I think the people strategy has to focus on finding people with amazing attitude, finding people with a powerful entrepreneurial spirit that will help build solid businesses on the continent. I think we've moved away from, this is a degree I got, this is the master's degree I got, these are certifications I have, to what problems can you solve and how fast can you solve them? Also, how quick can you lead other people to do what you can do as well? So I would say that the strategy is shifting into focusing more on character and attitude rather than qualifications, certifications, and even maybe experience to an extent.
Interesting. If we look at some of the modern or current trends, what would you say excites you most about the direction HR and people strategy is currently heading in Africa?
I would say that what is exciting is the people function is no longer that back office function where your role is to focus on getting people paid and making sure that you have a personnel file for each person. I think now it's like, how can you partner with the business and be preparing for the future? I think the HR function or people and culture function has become an integral part for any business on the continent. Because when you hire great people, when they are working in an environment where they feel included and engaged, they will do the best work of their lives. So therefore, the people and culture function is responsible for that. And also guiding leadership to build culture and accept that culture is integral to the success of any business. So I see the HR function taking more of a seat on the table, not even at the table anymore. I'm saying on the table now, because people are listening, because they know that people are important, and keeping your best people is really important, and attracting even more people is important. It's important to think about succession planning. How do we make sure that this business transcends generations? How do we make sure that we are ethical? Like, the people function does that. So I feel like we've shifted from just being the person carrying the files around to the person supporting the overall business strategy.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Last question.
Quote of the week.
As people, we often have quotes, mantras, African proverbs, or affirmations that keep us going when times are hard or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
I think mine is all things work together for good.
Very succinct and to the point. I like that.
I've said it 3 times today already.
Fantastic. Absolute pleasure. Juliet, that was a fantastic conversation. I think for me, it's clear that infrastructure is not just about steel, roads or ports. It's people, it's systems, it's trust. And also as Africans, if we are serious about building resilient institutions and globally competitive businesses, then the quality of our people and strategy matters a lot more than we sometimes realize.
100%. You're totally right. And I think for me as an individual, my passion now, and I didn't know it until 4 years ago when I joined Zipline, is to help build sustainable businesses in Africa. Like, that, I think, is my mission. And hopefully we'll be able to achieve it.
Fantastic and beautiful note to end today's conversation. Juliet, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing how things develop at Zipline and with yourself. So yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.